I know you also talk about the that within Islam there are five pillars, and they've actually added a couple.
Oh yeah,
Explain that to us.
yeah. It's funny because the first time anyone's ever heard of the phrase seven pillars of, seven pillars of anything was T.E. Lawrence, when he wrote his book, The Seven Pillars of Wisdom. Well, Islam has five pillars in which, or obligations that every Muslim is required to do or strive to do. The first is prayer, right? Pray 5 times a day. The second is to fast during the holy month of Ramadan, where you fast during the daytime and then sun goes down and then you stuff yourself full of food from dusk until dawn, and then you fast again for the remainder of that day. The third is charity, zakat, to give charity not only in your regular life but especially during the holy month of Ramadan. And the more charity you give throughout your life, the better it is. Fourth, you have the obligation of going on Hajj, going on pilgrimage to Mecca at least once in your life during the Hajj period, which is a 1 month period that generally follows Ramadan and in fall. Okay, and let me see. it's a little hard to keep track of these things.
Prayer,
And then the
fast, charity, and pilgrimage.
final one is shahada, right? The witnessing, where you must say, there is no God but God, and the Prophet Muhammad is his messenger. And that's La ilaha illallah, or Muhammadur Rasulullah, right? Every Muslim, once they witness that, then, of course, that validates their belief in Islam. ISIS and Al-Qaeda believe that some obligations were left out, and they make them mandatory for anyone who's an adherent in their organization. As a matter of fact, one of their theologians, a guy by the name of Faraj, an Egyptian, wrote a book called Jihad, the Absent Obligation. And they believe that holy war is an obligation of every Muslim. Now, in the Quran, that doesn't exist. There is an obligation of jihad if a legal body calls it jihad, if it is religiously sanctioned, if it is defensive in nature, if all diplomacy has failed, and if it is done only in cases of very short duration war. These guys don't believe that. They believe that jihad is a day-to-day event that every Muslim must take part in, and their jihad is an obligation to every Muslim. And the seventh, of course, for them is martyrdom, shaheed. You must die in this jihad. You have to try to die, because to die and striving to die is the holiest way of worship to God. And so, it's funny because when I was over in the Middle East, I lived there for 7 years. I just came back. When I talk to my Muslim friends and they sit down and I explain this to them, they go, no, that's not Islam. And I go, absolutely correct. So what is it? And it turns out that there were other cults in Islam, like the Mahdiist of Sudan in the 19th century. They changed the Shahada, right, to the witnessing, to include the name of the guy who made that sect. They also got rid of Hajj and declared that jihad was the holy war. The Muslim world quickly stamps out cults like this, and ISIS and Al Qaeda now are just the newest one and the most virulent.
And do you think that ultimately, I mean, is this and I would imagine to a certain extent, I mean, we can see similar parallels, and tell me if I'm wrong in terms of these type of cults within other major religions.
Oh, yes.
And I mean, what has been the process in the past that cults like this have been stamped out by Islam? And then I want to go get more specific with ISIS.
Sure.
But I'm just curious because, you've been out of the country for a little bit. I don't know if you've been seeing what's going on. Even on the nominal left in this country, it has become very fashionable to claim that there is something fundamentally problematic about Islam that is fundamentally different and fundamentally locked into this notion of jihad and is fundamentally at odds with coexistence with the West.
No. Yeah, that's ridiculous. And now I'm going to put on, I like to say, I'm going to put on my U.S. intelligence officer's hat, right? I've only been working in this field for 35 years, and I've only specialized in the Middle East, South Asia, and Sub-Saharan Africa. I mean, I speak Arabic. I live with these guys. I only work with indigenous forces, okay? which means I only live with them. I, go to mosque. I eat, play with their kids, and shoot the rifle at their weddings. So let me speak from the perspective of someone who's had to immerse myself in this. I don't like to say Lawrence-like, but yes, I've worn the dishdasha, and people think that I'm a local. The problem is not Islam. For all of its faults, Islam has been a progressive religion that has changed slowly over time. But Islam gave us art, technology, science, music, poetry, many of the things which revolutionized the Renaissance in the West. All of these things, ISIS and Al Qaeda seek to expunge. As a matter of fact, I write in the book how they believe all music except for one type called nasheeds, which are religious chants, it should be eliminated. So it would be the equivalent of the West wanting to eliminate all music except Gregorian chants, right? So Islam itself is the target of this group. There's 1.6 billion people they have to change or force to change or eliminate before they can move forward with their war to have a clash of civilizations with the West. For all of its faults, most things that people see in Islam, like, the wearing of hijab by women and, in the niqab by women, their treatment of women, other things, their, avarice, things that you see that are stereotypical, most of these things are culture. They are not religion. They preceded Islam. And every tribal group, if you actually take a look around throughout the world, lived like that. Christianity itself used head coverings and body coverings for women. As a matter of fact, if you want to see where Catholic nuns got their garb from, go to Karbala in Iraq. The habit is almost identical. So how did Islam get rid of these things? How did Islam root out groups that were deviant, as the Saudis like to call it? The first group, the Khawarij, there were 9 men. They were eliminated down to 9 men in the first Islamic civil war, the first Islamic fitna. But they still managed to kill the third caliph of Islam, Ali, and split Islam. 9 men split Islam into Sunnah and Shia by assassinating the caliph. They were wiped out, actually, by the next cult that came up, a group called the Karamata. The Karamata were, an armed Shia tribe that was preparing itself for the end of times, for the return of the Mahdi, their savior. And this group believed that Hajj pilgrimages were idolatry, were polytheism. So they went to Mecca and destroyed the city of Mecca, razed it to the ground, destroyed the Kaaba, killed everyone who was worshiping there, and stole the meteorite that was inside the black box at the Kaaba. They were wiped out later by a later Islamic dynasty, but it took 27 years to hunt them down and wipe them out. The third group, the Mahdists of Sudan, were wiped out by the Ottoman Empire with the British assistance. As a matter of fact, Winston Churchill took part in the battle at Omdurman against the Mahdists of Sudan. And then, they were just, erased from the sands of time. And the final group, before Al-Qaeda and ISIS, were the Utaybists. This was a group that seized the Grand Mosque in Mecca in 1979. The Saudis went into the Grand Mosque in a pitched multi-week battle and finally had to root them out with nerve gas. I mean, sarin gas dropped from French helicopters. These clashes with these groups always end in violence. And it's going to be the Muslim world that's going to have to eliminate them by first calling them to return to Islam. And then if they don't, Islam itself will have to rule according to Islamic law against them.
Hi, I'm Sam Seder, and this is an Ann Coulter doll.
You should not be immigrating here. Yeah. Stay in your country and hate us.
For smart progressive talk and a little bit of this and even a little bit of that.
Mission accomplished.
Subscribe to our podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and like us on Facebook to get some of our best video clips.